Segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. James Baxter, who is giving us information relative to Africans in public education, African Americans in public education. And we're now talking about the so-named historical black institutions of higher education, or more specifically, historical black colleges. And of course, Dr. Baxter, let's start off again by dealing finally with the HBCs and moving forward in reference to African Americans in public education.
All right, Dr. Haney, when we go back and we look at the post-antebellum period, that period after the Civil War, that period referred to as Reconstruction, we see then the black historical colleges being established. Not only that, we see the Reconstruction period in the last phase. But one thing we must remember, even though blacks were beginning to read and write, we also must remember that out of that Reconstruction period came what we refer to as the Negro Amendments, the 13th and the 14th and the 15th Amendment, along with the ongoing education of the freedmen. And schools being established by newly established black churches, along with the northern missionaries coming south. We must understand the greatest achievement that came out of the Reconstruction period and would be the launching pad for us as a people at the turn of the 20th century would be that of the right to vote. It would be that of education, which has always been our a ticket to the promised land. We must also remember that because of the education that we received, it enabled us to move forward as it relates to the well-meaning of economics. Well, as Reconstruction began to come to an end, we must understand at the close of Reconstruction, which officially ends in the year 1877, with the election by way of the Compromise of 1876, with the election in the House of Representatives of Rutherford B. Hayes as President of the United States of America. The last of the federal troops were pulled out of the South. Well, what does this mean? It means simply this: the federal government abandoned the Negro or the freedman in the South and left over 3.5 million plus people of color at the disposal, at the mercy of the redeeming Democrats. These were the ex-Confederates that had control of their state governments before the Civil War. These are the ex-Confederate officials who were disenfranchised because of their involvement in the Confederate government, which withdrew from these United States of America. Now they are back in control of their state governments as redeemers. And what they will do is to take away all of the strides of freedoms, all of the rights, all of the things that were accomplished during the Reconstruction period. Their goal was to take us back to where we once were, okay? Now, so we're in this period where people of color are being subjected. They're being terrorized by the Ku Klux Klan. They're being terrorized by other vigilante groups. New voting rights are new voting laws are being imposed. Now we have the grandfather clause. Now we have the poll tax. Now we have the literacy test. And eventually, we find ourselves with no black politicians at the local level, the state level, the federal level. So then it's open season now for Southerners to turn back the clock and place people of color back where they were before the war. It was not a physical slavery, but it was a mental slavery. We were set back from an economic point of view. Well, now we come up to the year 1896. Homer Plessy. His case goes all the way to the Supreme Court. Homer Plessy made what white Southerners would call a major mistake. He wanted to be seated in a boxcar that was restricted to him because of the color of his skin.